Every disaster preparedness guide tells you the same thing. Water, food, flashlight, radio, first aid kit. Stock enough for 72 hours, maybe a week if you're serious. And that's fine if you're riding out a snowstorm or waiting for FEMA after a tornado. But here's what nobody wants to say out loud. If World War III kicks off, if the container ships stop arriving from China, if the refineries go offline and the trucks stop rolling, your carefully assembled 72-hour kit isn't a survival plan. It's a timer. 3 days of food means 3 days before you're competing with your neighbors for whatever's left. The gap between official preparedness guidance and actual survival requirements isn't a gap. It's a canyon. Most preppers are filling their closets with the wrong supplies because they're imagining the wrong disaster. These 17 items bridge that canyon. Some the Red Cross recommends. Some they'd never officially endorse. Before I give you the list, you need to understand how we evaluate survival items, because a checklist without methodology is just shopping, and shopping won't save you when the supply chain collapses. We use what we call Cascade failure analysis. Take electricity. You know what runs on electricity? Water treatment plants, gas station pumps, refrigeration, communication networks, medical equipment. When the power fails, water fails within hours. When water fails, sanitation fails within days. When sanitation fails, disease spreads faster than any virus you've been taught to fear. That's a cascade. One failure triggers the next, which triggers the next, until systems that seemed independent reveal they were all connected. Layer 1 is critical infrastructure dependencies. Most people understand this intuitively. No power means no modern conveniences. What they miss is how deep those dependencies go. Your city's water doesn't just need electricity to pump. It needs electricity to purify. It needs trucks to deliver treatment chemicals. Those trucks need diesel. That diesel needs refineries. Those refineries need the grid. Everything connects. Layer 2 is supply chain vulnerabilities. America has roughly 30 days of most essential supplies in the entire distribution network. That's warehouse inventory, plus what's on shelves, plus what's in transit. 30 days. And that's assuming normal consumption. In a crisis, consumption triples as people panic buy. 30 days becomes 10. Most of those supplies, they come from overseas. China manufactures most of the world's pharmaceuticals, electronics, and basic goods. When container ships stop crossing the Pacific, when ports shut down, when just-in-time inventory becomes just never, those supplies don't magically appear from Nebraska. Layer 3 is the redundancy principle. Every critical function needs 3 solutions: primary, backup, and primitive. Water? Your primary is municipal supply. Your backup is stored bottles. Your primitive is a purification method that works without electricity or supplies running out. Most people stop at backup. That's not redundancy. That's just delaying failure. Layer 4 is force multiplication. Some items extend the capability of other items. Fire doesn't just provide warmth. It purifies water, preserves food, enables sanitation, provides psychological comfort. Knowledge multiplies everything. The person who knows how to start a fire with friction doesn't just have fire, they have infinite fire. Red Cross guidance covers Layer 1 adequately. It barely touches Layer 3. It ignores Layer 4 completely. That's not a criticism. They're designing for temporary disasters where help arrives. We're designing for when help doesn't come. Now we can talk about actual items. But here's what most people get catastrophically wrong. They start with gear and weapons. That's backwards. You start with what kills you fastest and work backwards from mortality. Here's what kills you and how fast. 3 hours without shelter in extreme conditions. 3 days without water. 3 weeks without food. That's the rule of threes. And it's not a suggestion. It's biology. The Red Cross knows this. Their entire preparedness checklist is built around this hierarchy. So what does the Red Cross actually recommend? 1 gallon of water per person per day for 3 days. Non-perishable food for 3 days. Battery-powered or hand-crank radio. Flashlight with extra batteries. First aid kit. 7-day supply of prescription medications. Multi-tool. Local maps. Emergency contact list. Cell phone with chargers and backup battery. This is good guidance. It's not wrong. It handles exactly what it's designed to handle. Hurricane evacuation when you're sheltering for a few days before returning home. Earthquake aftermath while waiting for utilities to restore. Winter storm that knocks out power for a week. These are localized disasters where the surrounding infrastructure remains intact. Help arrives. Supply chains resume. Life returns to normal within days or weeks. Hurricane Katrina knocked out power to parts of New Orleans for months, but the rest of America kept functioning. Grocery stores in Texas had food. FEMA could truck in supplies. The grid failure was temporary and geographic. World War III isn't a hurricane. It's not localized. It's not temporary. When we're talking about global conflict that disrupts supply chains, targets infrastructure, and collapses the systems that keep 8 billion people fed, the math changes completely. Let's run the numbers. 3 gallons of water per person. That's 3 days. If infrastructure restoration takes 30 days, you need 30 gallons. That's doable. Store 30 gallons. But if it takes 60 days? 6 months? What if the water treatment plant was deliberately targeted and isn't coming back online? You can't store infinite water. At some point, you need a method to purify water indefinitely. The Red Cross 3-day supply becomes a countdown, not a solution. Same logic applies to every consumable item. 3 days of food. 7 days of medication. Finite batteries. These recommendations assume resupply. They assume the trucks start rolling again. They assume normalcy returns. In extended systemic collapse, those assumptions fail. You can't restock at Walmart when Walmart's distribution centers are empty. You can't refill prescriptions when pharmaceutical supply chains from overseas have stopped. You can't buy more batteries when factories aren't shipping. The gap between Red Cross guidance and actual long-term survival requirements isn't minor. It's the difference between riding out a storm and rebuilding civilization. So we took their list and extended it. 17 items. Some are on their checklist. Some they'd never officially recommend. Some aren't physical items at all. Items 1 through 3 are about preventing death in the first week. Exposure kills in hours. Contaminated water kills in days. Darkness kills morale and safety. Item 1. Water purification system. Not bottled water. Red Cross says store 3 gallons per person. That's 3 days. World War III reality? You need infinite water. You cannot store your way out of this problem. You need the capability to purify water indefinitely from any available source. Solutions exist at multiple price points and technology levels. Sawyer Mini Filter purifies 100,000 gallons for about $25. LifeStraw filters work on the same principle. Ceramic filters last even longer, but cost more. That's your primary system. Your backup is chemical purification. Unscented household bleach, 8 drops per gallon, kills most pathogens. A single gallon of bleach costs $3 and can purify thousands of gallons of water if stored properly. Your tertiary method is boiling. Requires fuel and fire, but works when everything else fails. Filters break. Bleach runs out. Know what comes next in your Cascade. Item 2. Thermal regulation system. Red Cross recommends emergency blankets. Mylar sheets that reflect body heat. Great for short-term use. Completely insufficient for extended grid-down winter. The rule of threes says 3 hours without shelter in extreme conditions. Hypothermia kills faster than dehydration. You need layered redundancy. Cold-rated sleeping bags designed for the actual low temperatures in your region, not optimistic summer camping ratings. Wool blankets that insulate even when wet. Unlike synthetic materials, multiple Mylar blankets as compact backup. knowledge of how to build insulated shelters using available materials. Winter 2022 and 2023 saw Europe facing energy shortages, rolling blackouts, heating fuel rationing. That was with functioning governments and international aid. Now imagine no grid, no natural gas deliveries, no fuel trucks. Your home becomes a tent. Can you keep your family warm for 3 months without electricity or gas? Most people drastically overestimate their home's ability to retain heat without active systems. Item 3. Redundant light sources. Red Cross says flashlight and extra batteries. Batteries are consumables. They run out. They degrade in storage. You need light sources that work indefinitely. Solar rechargeable lights and flashlights. Infinite charge cycles, but weather-dependent. Hand crank flashlights and radios. Reliable, but require physical labor. Candles and oil lamps. Long burn times, but consume fuel. Chemical light sticks. One-time use, but completely reliable. No maintenance. Multiple technologies. No single point of failure. That's the redundancy principle in action. Most people underestimate how much light they use. Every room, every hallway, every hour after sunset. When that's gone, when you're rationing light like food, the psychological weight is staggering. You've got water. You won't freeze. You can see. Now let's talk about what keeps you operational beyond week 1. Items 4 through 6 are about maintaining function when the systems you take for granted stop working. The first week keeps you alive. The first month keeps you functional. Items 4 through 6 extend your timeline from days to months. Item 4. Food preservation and production capability. Red Cross says 3 days of non-perishable food. Canned goods, protein bars. Fine for hurricanes. Death sentence for extended collapse. Average person needs 2,000 calories per day. That's 60,000 per month. You cannot stockpile your way to safety with grocery store cans. You need bulk staples that store for decades. Rice and beans. Together they form complete protein. 50 pounds of rice costs $20, feeds 1 person for 2 months. Add beans, salt, oil, honey. Honey never spoils. Archaeologists found 3,000-year-old honey in Egyptian tombs that's still edible. Stored food is finite. You need preservation capability and eventually production. Canning supplies, pressure canners, jars, lids. The skill to turn fresh food into shelf-stable reserves. Seeds. Non-hybrid seeds that produce more seeds. The only infinite food source. Your great-grandmother knew how to can vegetables. Do you? Item 5. Advanced first aid and medication stockpile. Red Cross recommends basic first aid kit and 7-day medication supply. In extended collapse, there is no 911, no emergency room. Cuts that need stitches become life-threatening infections. You need antibiotics. Gray market reality. Fish antibiotics are chemically identical to human versions. Same factories, different labels. Suture kits and training. YouTube exists now. Learn before crisis. Dental emergency kits. Tooth infections kill. Chronic medications, 3-month minimum stockpile. Civil War mortality data. More soldiers died from infected wounds than from wounds themselves. Modern medicine made us forget how dangerous simple infections are. Item 6. Communication systems that don't require infrastructure. Red Cross says battery radio for broadcasts. Who's broadcasting when the grid is down? What if towers were targeted? Hand crank or solar emergency radios for NOAA frequencies. Ham radio for peer-to-peer communication. Pre-established rally points with family that need no technology. Information is survival currency. Knowing what's happening, where resources exist, what threats move. Isolated people make worse decisions operating on incomplete information. Items 1 through 6 keep you alive and functional. Items 7 through 12 are force multipliers, things that extend everything else you have and prepare you for long-term adaptation. We're now past immediate survival. These items don't keep you alive next week. They keep you effective next year. Item 7. Fire-making capability with redundant methods. Fire is the ultimate force multiplier. It purifies water, extending Item 1. It preserves food through smoking and cooking. It provides warmth. It enables sanitation through boiling. The psychological comfort of fire in darkness is impossible to overstate. Redundancy is critical. Primary, disposable lighters. Buy 50 for $20. Secondary, waterproof matches and ferrocerium rods. Ferro rods create sparks in any weather, last thousands of strikes. Tertiary, friction methods like bow drill, hand drill, solar ignition with lenses. Here's the catch. People stockpile fire-starting tools and assume they're prepared. Can you actually build a sustainable fire? Find dry tinder in wet conditions? Understand fuel progression from tinder to kindling to logs? Most people fail at basic fire building even with unlimited matches. Fuel knowledge matters more than ignition capability. Practice now. Item 8. Item: quality multi-tools and manual equipment. When infrastructure collapses, you're doing repairs professionals used to handle. Fixed blade knife for real work. Folding tools break under hard use. Manual can opener, because electric needs power and cheap survival openers fail. Wire cutters, pliers, screwdrivers. Manual axe and saw for firewood. Sewing kit for gear repair. Philosophy shift. Buy quality once instead of replacing cheap tools constantly. Leatherman, Moriknev. Known reliability when replacement is impossible. Historical pattern. In prolonged conflicts, tool access equals wealth. The person who can fix things becomes invaluable. Item 9. Physical reference library, the forgotten force multiplier. Red Cross says keep local maps. Valid, but insufficient. When the grid is down, you have no Google, no YouTube, no WebMD physical books. Medical guides like Where There Is No Doctor and Where There Is No Dentist. Edible plant identification for your region. Basic repair manuals for plumbing, electrical, mechanical systems. Survival skills references. Why physical? Devices fail. Batteries deplete. Digital storage corrupts. Paper lasts decades. Information in your head is best. Information on paper is second. Information requiring electricity is fantasy. Print these now while Amazon delivers. Learn before you need them desperately. Items 7, 8, and 9 extend your capability. Items 10, 11, and 12 extend your timeline. These separate short-term survivors from long-term adapters. After month 1, if you're still alone and hoarding, you're already losing. Item 10. Security and defense capability. Red Cross won't touch this. The reality they can't officially acknowledge is that desperate people become dangerous people. This isn't about offense. It's about deterrence and protection. Firearms if you're legally permitted and properly trained, but that's not the focus here. Avoid the gear fetishism trap. Most security is passive. Reinforce entry points. Install simple noise alarms. Maintain perimeter awareness. Community defense is infinitely more effective than solo defense. The visible prepper who advertises their stockpile attracts exactly the wrong kind of attention. Item 11. Sanitation and hygiene systems. The most overlooked item on every preparedness list. When toilets don't flush, disease spreads faster than violence. History is clear on this. Cholera, dysentery, typhoid. These are 19th century diseases that disappeared because of modern sanitation. When that infrastructure fails, they return immediately. More people die from disease in disaster zones than from the initial disaster itself. You need portable sanitation, 5-gallon bucket toilet systems, heavy-duty contractor bags, massive quantities of bleach for waste treatment, lime for odor control and decomposition, soap stockpiles, because basic hygiene prevents most communicable diseases. This is the unglamorous reality of extended collapse. People focus on tactical gear and weapons. What actually kills them is infected water and poor sanitation. Item 12. Barter and trade goods. This is where individual survival transitions to community interaction. Economy doesn't disappear during collapse. It transforms. Items with universal value become currency. Salt, alcohol, tobacco, coffee, ammunition, lighters, batteries, basic over-the-counter medications. These aren't about making you wealthy. They're about enabling exchange. The person who can trade has access to resources beyond their own stockpile. The isolated hoarder eventually runs out of something critical and has no way to acquire it. Trading creates relationships. Relationships create community. Community creates survival. Items 1 through 12 are about stuff. The final 5 items are about something more valuable than any supply you can stockpile. They're about the only resource that actually matters when everything else runs out. Here's what every prepper eventually learns. The gear doesn't save you. The person you become saves you. Item 13. Mental resilience and morale supplies. The most ignored category in all preparedness. Prolonged stress destroys decision-making ability. You need supplies that maintain psychological survival, not just physical. Books for mental escape. Fiction, not just survival manuals. Games for family cohesion. Musical instruments. Comfort foods like chocolate and coffee. These aren't luxuries, they're psychological necessities. World War II Britain understood this. Morale was treated as strategic infrastructure. Music in concentration camps wasn't entertainment, it was survival mechanism. People who maintain hope make better decisions. Children especially need anchors of normalcy. The family that can still play a card game together in month 3 of grid down maintains cohesion better than the family that can only stare at walls and ration food. Item 14. Skill development. Not a physical item. The ability to learn and adapt. Every skill you acquire reduces dependency on consumable supplies. Growing food, preserving food, basic first aid, equipment repair, conflict resolution. These are force multipliers for entire communities. Time to learn is now, not during crisis. One skilled person in a community multiplies effectiveness for everyone. The person who can fix things, heal things, or teach things becomes invaluable. Skills can't be stolen, can't run out, can't break. Item 15. Social capital and community network. The most valuable item you can stockpile. Know your neighbors now. Identify complementary skills in your area. Pre-crisis relationships equal trust during crisis. You cannot stockpile trust. You build it over years of living near people, helping them, being helped by them. Lone wolves die. Communities adapt. This isn't idealism. It's historical pattern. Every disaster, every collapse, every crisis sorts people into 2 groups. Those who isolated and hoarded, and those who cooperated and shared. The second group survives at dramatically higher rates. Items 13, 14, and 15 are about becoming someone worth surviving with. The final 2 items complete the picture. Everything else fails without these last 2. Item 16. Documentation and planning systems. Physical copies of critical documents. IDS, property deeds, insurance policies, medical records, emergency contacts. Plans documented and shared with family. Rally points for when phones don't work. Communication protocols. Decision trees for different scenarios. Maps with resources marked. Water sources, medical facilities, potential shelter locations, written plans prevent panic decisions. The boring administrative work that saves lives when chaos hits. Practice runs matter. Walk through your evacuation plan. Test your rally points. Identify gaps before you need the system to work perfectly. Item 17. Community action and mutual aid agreements. The ultimate item to stockpile. The decision to prepare collectively, not individually. Neighborhood resilience networks. Skill-sharing agreements now, before crisis. Resource pooling strategies. Pre-established communication systems. Not waiting for government organizations to coordinate. Taking responsibility for your own community's survival. This is the difference between surviving alone and thriving together. Reality check. A list without action is fantasy. You can memorize all 17 items and still die in the first month if you haven't actually acquired them, learned to use them, and built relationships around them. Skills matter more than stuff. Community matters most. These three things work together or don't work at all. First, assess your current preparedness honestly against these 17 items. Second, prioritize gaps by the mortality hierarchy. What kills you fastest gets addressed first. Third, acquire skills while acquiring supplies. The item is worthless if you don't know how to use it. Fourth, build community relationships now. Trust takes time. Not claiming World War III is imminent. Claiming preparedness has no downside. These items are useful for any extended crisis. Economic collapse, natural disaster, infrastructure failure. The specifics change. The requirements don't. 17 items, not the ones in your 72-hour kit. Not the ones the Red Cross can officially recommend. The ones that matter when the systems we depend on stop working. Stock the gear. Build the skills. Know your neighbors. Because when Cascade failures start, the people who prepared correctly won't just survive. They'll be the foundation of what comes next.